Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds. I'm Nerdarchist Ryan, and today I'm joined by
Dave.
Nate.
And today we have a viewer request from Alex Maxwell, and he wants to ask the question, right? Testing a paladin's faith and devotion. What should they do when a hated enemy surrenders to them? What do you do? What do you do?
Well, in 5th edition, paladins are drastically...
Not that kind of paladin?
They're drastically different than previous editions, so... First off, it would depend on what kind of paladin you were, and then, there's no real alignment restrictions, so even if you're a devotion, you still don't have to even be good.
Yeah, well, and it just depends on the deity in question, really. Like, in this edition, that guy, the Irish guy from Braveheart, it's like, I don't know what your god tells you, or my god tells me I'm going to be okay, but you're pretty much fucked. Yeah. Like, that guy could completely be a paladin in this edition of the game. Yeah.
Which is a really messed up thought.
Yeah. So I guess it really depends on what is he talking about. Like, is he talking about the archetype paladin? Sir Lancelot. True paladin.
Like an elven paladin of Lathander.
Basically the most lawfully good, holy roller sort of paladin.
Yeah. Like, I feel like that paladin, no matter what, is basically he has to do the Jesus thing, turn the other cheek and bring him in.
Yeah, and I can imagine like the villain that really knows the paladin like fights him to the last, and then toward the end of it just surrenders.
I got it. Okay, what you have to do is you have to think about the Dresden books and the Knights of the Sword, and their most hated enemy is the Knights of the Denarius. And what do they do to escape every time? When a knight is about to bring them down, all they have to do is hand over their coin.
And
even surrender.
Even if they don't mean it.
Yeah, and the knight has to take the surrender.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. The villain. They have this pitch battle. It comes towards the close, and the villain knows he's losing. The villain, smirking and laughing, just surrenders because he knows that this is the worst. Because this paladin wants to end him, and he's not giving him that satisfaction.
Yeah, because he's not fighting back.
Yeah, because paladins are still human. They're still gonna want to have some impulse towards avenging all the foul deeds that this person has done, and he can't finally pull off that final justice because their hated target.
Not Michael, man.
Yeah.
Not Michael Carpenter. He's just he just brings them in.
So I would say, and that's the people that have you're going to have the paladins that have the inner struggle with that situation, or it's like a light switch. My foe has surrendered. Therefore, an if-then statement, almost. My foe surrendered, so I'm going to treat him like this. Well, no matter what.
Yeah, my problem is, not playing a character that has no, flaws, no trepidations whatsoever. That might not be their flaw. The heat of battle thing might not be that character's flaw. But, a character should have some sort of flaw or drawback. And
sure, but it doesn't have to be murder. Yeah. It could, you could be so righteous that is your flaw. That can be used against you.
No. I mean, that's what I'm saying. That, all right, this surrender...
the flaw was the villain can... I think the flaw on the paladin is the villain can surrender, and you say, okay, I'll take you into justice.
Yeah, no, I'm saying
instead of just
that
smite.
This might not be their one flaw, or it could be played up to a certain thing. But if you play a character that's so holier than thou and so uncorruptible and has no drawback, that just that character has as much dimension as the sheet of paper. It's nothing.
See, I would disagree because Michael Carpenter in the Dresden Files is an awesome character. He's an excellent character, and he is like that. And it's not because that they surrender and because that's what they're supposed to do. It's because he believes everyone deserves redemption. That's just his belief. And throughout the books, you see him struggle with certain things, when his family's threatened, and he has to turn that over to his beliefs. But it's the inner dialogue is there. It's just his character as an individual is far stronger than those emotions, and he doesn't allow them to rule him. You could still have that type of character and still be multidimensional.
All right, moving on.
So was there any other parts to that question?
Well, we talked a little bit about how we kind of brought up the fact that 5e is so different with their paladins that we had to go with the standardized, holy.
You have to rein it in to that very Pelor, if you're talking. Is that Forgotten Realms?
I feel like Pelor's a justice kind of guy.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to remember what setting.
I don't. We use so much of our own. I don't really memorize the written deities as is. Except Law.
Greyhawk.
I think it's Greyhawk because I don't know. One of the editions they defaulted to Greyhawk.
Yeah.
And that's what that's from.
But anyway, okay. So your Paladin of a goodly deity, I can see there being an issue with offing a guy after he surrenders.
Because chaotic good can absolutely do it. Neutral can absolutely do it.
Yeah, but if you're looking at it like a lawful good deity that deals in justice and righteousness or other things like that, or like goodly acts, you're going to have a problem offing that guy without penalty in a sense. I would say in 5e, Oath of Devotion is going to be the highth.
Toward that
the closest towards that,
Yeah.
based on what's the deal with the theme of the Oath of Devotion. But you're looking at a Vengeance Paladin.
It's like kind of like their job, the venge.
Yeah, it would have to be like a particular deity, like really heavy on the justice and not meting it out, but like taking people to justice, whatever that is. Like, so it depends on whether or not it's a commonality justice or it's a justice as
you have to go through trial.
Yeah, does there need to be a trial? Like, is this guy like a mass murder serial killer, or is he a villain that has like destroyed entire nations? Well, then I can, as a Vengeance Paladin, I can off this guy. He has got the death penalty coming, whether it's through me or whether it's an executioner blade or whatever.
You gotta drag him to the hag, man.
The heck?
Well, and
so that's what I see. I don't see that being a problem if, like, you might be the divine instrument of justice at that point. So who cares what he says? He can surrender. He can say he's going to kiss every baby he sees and give them 1,000 gold pieces for their life. And you're like, no, you're dead.
Well,
I'm killing you right now.
What this edition makes so much easier is the fact, and I think 4th had this too, that you can just choose to do non-lethal damage with no penalties. Whereas like in past editions, there was a tax to pay to like do non-lethal strikes. Like you had to take like a -4 to attack or whatever. So in this edition, for you can just like a light switch. You're not paying a penalty to choose to bring in somebody alive if you want to apprehend. You have to deal with the whole the capture and bringing a prisoner now. Which has its own interesting dynamics.
I'd Game of Thrones that guy, tar his head and bring it back. That's what would be happening if I was anything except like a Judeo-Christian based like deity believer.
I don't know. I kind of hate the fact that like it just seems like most of my players always just want to murder the thing, like no matter, like that's their go-to. Whether they're running, chase it down and murder it. If it's I almost as a DM I want to get vindictive sometimes. I'd be like, it's running away. You beat it. You won. Yeah. Why does it have to die?
Well, I mean, this is another discussion because this is very off topic.
But still, it's the same players that play the Paladin, so it still comes up.
Right, but again,
okay, so like surrender through running away, through retreat, in a sense.
Yeah. So, but whatever. So, I thought he said something about other ways of testing a Paladin, or is it just that one specific?
Right. Let's.
Because you could absolutely,
testing a Paladin's faith and devotion. So, I mean, that was kind of like the subheading, but we can talk about ways to test the Paladin.
I would say it has to go really along, especially in this edition. You just can't default that it's a lawful good god that you're following, or you're like lawful good.
Yeah, Paladins are now more like holy champions than they are what they were before.
Yeah, so you got to go with if you're going to test a Paladin, you got to know what you're supposed to test them against. And it would really help that the player knows this as well.
Find the strictures of the deity, and then and make sure that they have access to it, and that they've read it. Put some things in there that are actually going to be moral quandaries for them.
Yeah. Now, if they're lawful good and they're just generic, like Holy Paladin, Oath of Devotion, and they don't necessarily have a specific deity, well, then I would just go with like the average, like anonymous, lawful good deity. What's that going to be like? And then say, well, these are the things, the devotions you're making. So these are the things you have to follow.
There's some stuff even in the under Oath of Devotions of things that they would do, like they always do honestly, and so have some situations where telling the truth in that situation is detrimental to you or the party or both.
Yeah.
Well, that's another thing too. Like as far as testing the Paladin, you just look at like what those sample oaths are. Actually, when you look at those sample oaths and you use them in that context, the alignment no longer matters, because you are the sworn champion of this thing, and regardless of what alignment you are, you're supposed to uphold these tenets. You know, so that's definitely somewhere as the poke and prod, and you know, I can definitely see players go, well, I'm not, you know, I'm chaotic good or I'm chaotic evil, but if you're chaotic evil and you're still supposed to uphold these tenets, you know, there should absolutely be a penalty for not upholding
So
them.
Oath of the Ancients, let's say you're chaotic evil or evil alignment. Oath of the Ancients, isn't that something about like upholding beautiful things, or you know, letting your light shine and things? So it would be like you'd have to really portray your good qualities, whatever you have, whatever like goodliness or beauty you have in you. You'd have to portray those, even if you're an evil character.
No, it doesn't have to be goodliness, because like for that one anyway.
Beauty.
But you know, yeah, because it talks about beauty, it talks about freedom.
So maybe a red dragon is beautiful, natural beauty.
Well, they think they are.
So I mean, you know.
Well,
maybe
I mean,
killing that might be bad if it's like if it's an endangered species now or
Oath of
something.
the Ancients, you're talking like the incursions of civilization versus things that are ancient and holy and sanctified. So you could absolutely go slaughtering townsfolk that are trying to like, you know, cultivate lands that are like, you know, like virginal forests or whatever. Like no,
if they're like clear cutting forest, I guess you could go in and deal with them. I mean, you'd probably deal with them.
Eco-terrorists.
Yeah.
That's
So you'd
my
be
point.
like
You went
one-man
right to
eco-terror.
slaughter. You went right to slaughter the town.
we were just talking chaotic evil, so I don't know.
Well, I mean, there's
alignment-wise.
like, you know, different ways of playing chaotic evil.
The most murderous alignment is going to be chaotic.
Yeah, well,
Oh,
he also
yeah.
doesn't want to get murdered by like a goodly paladin for killing townspeople.
Yeah, but I feel like they have a pretty simple solution set for how they're going to want to deal things, and those are going to often be violent and terrible. Whereas like a neutral evil or a lawful evil has much more subtle ways of handling things.
I don't know. Like
I
that's
don't actually like playing evil characters, so I don't really
it's
care
like
about
putting all the
enumerating
alignments
that.
in a box, which goes to the alignment system in and of itself. Well, you know, hey,
Yeah.
there's some things that are D&D's isms that are never probably going to go away from the game.
It almost went. I feel like it almost went, but it was still there. I don't mind it for like immutable creatures. That's totally cool, like fiends and fae and all that stuff. Things that are immortal and aren't actually going to change. Like a demon never is going to be good. Even if he's doing something good, he's going to screw you. But a chaotic evil guy could totally, you know, flip.
They can change.
Yeah, they can change. They're human. They
get redemption?
Yeah.
Yeah. I see like alignment as like it should be like a dimmer switch, you know?
All right,
back and forth.
back to paladins and
Well,
stuff.
a lot of
paladin discussion.
our alignment angst is kind of in a way tied to
Paladins, because I mean they're the epitome of alignments. They always have been. You know, now they've just expanded it. Third edition, they even created like a paladin for each alignment.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm glad. I like the way the fifth style is, but I would say the major. Okay, so the major takeaway from this is I would say, figure out how to actually test your paladin. I think it's specific per paladin. It's not like
Between the oath and between the deity.
yeah.
Like,
Especially in
super
fifth edition, you just can't just say, you know, this scenario you absolutely have to act like this because you're a paladin. Like, whoa, I'm a paladin of vengeance.
Yeah.
And I'm after this guy. You know, that's completely different. Surrender, especially with the surrender situation, than like a lawful good paladin of devotion, happy tree hugging, whatever fairy god that he's got devotion to. I figure he's gonna have some kind of goodly justice mindset. He's gonna take him in for being meta justice.
You know,
that way.
the paladin of vengeance is almost like the holy bounty hunter.
Yeah, that's
of
my
the
vision
paladins.
of him.
You know, so with those characters, you can still produce moral quandaries. Like perhaps you're bringing them in for a reason, but then you find out like his reasoning for doing something. All
was far more noble than originally known about.
Yeah, or even or the oath of the ancients. Maybe they're despoiling nature, but then you find out they're actually refugees from a war-torn nation, and they're just trying to survive the best they can. So like, is there other solutions?
You might see your solution as to guide them correctly, rather than
murder them,
kick them off. So and it might actually be that might be the soft sell for getting the situation, taken care of without resorting to swinging a sword around. So yeah, I think it's going to be a test per different devotion as well as a test per what they actually devote themselves to, like the tenets that they select. So it's really like a mix and match. I feel, they've got the 3 thematic pieces, but you can
how does that map
subtract.
onto the deity exactly?
Yeah, how does that map onto the deity? Did they take all those particular oaths that are in the book, or did they add some, or did they change some? I think paladins are way more like right as you like, based on background and story.
They're very specific. I mean, they're specific to the character, and they're specific to the to the deity that they're going to revere.
It's definitely a class that the DM and the players should work together
to have a common thread of the things that they're
and come up with it, and so that the player knows kind of what they should be doing, and the DM has an idea what he feels that the player should be doing as a paladin of that thing.
Really similar to the warlock. I mean, you should really say like, well, he's a Fey pact. Well, who's the Fey? What does the Fey actually want to do? Like, what does the fiend actually want to do with this person? And I think that's gonna like evolve and direct that character towards certain actions, and there's going to be a similar testing. So I think those 2 classes are like.
Well, I mean, but any character that, like the cleric that gets his power from another source is going to be under the same strictures technically that the paladin or the warlock's going to be under too.
Yeah,
because
I feel like cleric a little less.
It's a little looser
because I feel like the DM has like. It's like DM Fiat, whether or not you get to keep your powers. Like they're deciding whether or not you are no longer a paladin or no longer getting power from your
or an oathbreaker.
Yeah, or you become an oathbreaker, or I don't know, like.
I feel like the paladin has a higher ideal that it holds to, and I feel the warlock is the opposite, because the warlock, something happened at some point where your patron made a contract with you, so. So what exactly is that contract? The contract is what you got. The only thing you really have to worry about, because that's all the player knows. They got power for being a warlock, and they're gonna have to give something up,
or do something.
Yeah, whether you just signed away your firstborn or your soul, or
you're my servant.
You've committed to pull off 99 murders, at a given time or whatever. Yeah. So that one I feel is a little more vague, where the paladin should be all spelled out right from the beginning. There's no real surprises.
There should be order.
What they expect.
Order and structure to the paladin.
Pretty much.
Even if they're chaotic.
Even if they're chaotic evil, there should be like a rule book that they get.
The playbook.
I would say yay to that. Yeah.
So, I don't know. That's all I got for this one.
I think we're paladins out at this point. Yeah.
All right, so smart our way out of this one. So, guys, in the comments below, let us know how you feel about the paladin and what's the best way to tempt them. And again, too, paladins in 5th edition. It's a completely different animal than we're used to. So weigh in on that. While you're at it, like, subscribe, and share.
I would like to tempt you to patronize us in a good way over on our Patreon account.
Or you can tweet us over on Twitter.
Until next time,
stay nerdy.